Hello and welcome to Politics here on France 24. April 22nd is around the corner. Well, this is the day of round one of the presidential elections here in France. In all likelihood, we already know the names of the two top vote getters, the ones who will make it to round two, which will take place on May 6th. Nicolas Sarkozy, the incumbent, and his socialist rival François Hollande. And if the polls are right, François Hollande will be France's next president, the first socialist to be president since François Mitterrand was re-elected back in 1988. However, there's still time for voters to change their minds, and there's time for unanticipated events to take place. So is it a done deal or still an open race? To discuss the issue with me here today is Benjamin Haddad, who is one of the national secretaries of the ruling UMP party and who is also in charge of the young with the Génération France think tank. Hello and welcome to you too.
Hi.
And also on the set, Jean-Philippe Thiellet, who is the vice president of Terra Nova, a think tank close to the Socialist Party. So, Benjamin Haddad, let me begin with you. The polls are showing, and we can see one of the recent polls. There are polls taken every day, so we're deluged by polls. But one shows that in round one, Nicolas Sarkozy is slightly ahead of François Hollande, and they're both way ahead of the rest of the pack. However, and that's been a recurrent issue for Nicolas Sarkozy, he's still way behind in round two in this poll that we're showing, 55-45. So is there still time for Nicolas Sarkozy to catch up?
Well, as you know, polls are only an instant photography of the opinion at a specific moment. And I think it doesn't make much sense to look at second round polls without having the first round first during the vote. And I think lots of polling experts would say the same. So now it's only a question of dynamic. In the next few days, Nicolas Sarkozy is going to announce his program. It's going to be a very bold, very courageous program, underlining the fact that there are no spending that is associated with this program. It's a €0 program. And we'll see. I think there's a dynamic that is behind us. I think François Hollande is having some unease in his campaign, which is underlined by the strong showing right now of Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And I think between the
Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the leader of the left front, on the left of the
left-wing
Party.
candidate on the left front of the Socialists. And obviously, the night of the first round, François Hollande is going to have to negotiate, going to have to talk with Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He's going to have to maybe make some agreements, and they are very, very different in their substance. So once again, let's compare the programs, let's compare the dynamics and wait for the first round, and then we'll have a debate and we'll see what the second round gives.
Do you agree with this analysis that you're basically saying round one is one thing, round two, it's beyond the point to extrapolate right now because there's no relationship whatsoever between round one and round two? Some polling experts might agree, but many might disagree with that analysis.
No, of course, there is a relationship between the first and the second. When you are not qualified, you cannot run for presidency. And then you have to count the forces of the left and of the right. And of course, you have to fight against abstention. And that's a big issue for everyone at the first round. And that's an issue for the left in particular. But I don't agree talking about dynamic. I think that what happened during the three last weeks is just normal. There is no surprise in this campaign, and that's maybe why people are disappointed with the campaign with the risk of abstention. I explain. There is no surprise because the right-wing party lost a lot of potential candidates. Dominique de Villepin, Christine Boutin, Hervé Morin, they are not in the game. And so that's just normal that candidate Sarkozy...
Even centrists like Jean-Louis Borloo, for example, who didn't run.
Exactly. So no one in France could believe a few months ago that François Hollande would win with 57 or 60 to 40, as we have seen at the beginning of the year. So it's just normal. I don't think there is a dynamic, and I understand the disappointment of the people because the candidate don't speak a lot about big issues. I was listening to Nicolas Sarkozy last week. he didn't address the real issues. He said, I have no speech, and my team doesn't like that. And he spoke only about styles, about personalities, about characters, criticizing a lot François Hollande, but he didn't address a lot of important issue, and there is no surprise in his proposals until now.
One issue that became a campaign issue because of the tragic events in Toulouse and Montauban, the shootings of military and of Jewish children, is clearly security as it's known, immigration, terrorism. Nicolas Sarkozy played his role as president, but we've also seen a wave of arrests in the last few days of alleged Islamic radicals. Nicolas Sarkozy is playing this card of the head of state. I mean, is this really a strategy that he's pursuing right now? And some people are saying he might be forgetting about purchasing power and employment and maybe the issues that are bread and butter issues, as we call them.
Well, character does matter. When you look at the world right now, when you look at our country right now in 2012, it's extremely different from 2007. And it's obvious, and I think a lot of world leaders, for instance, would agree that our president has been extremely active and credible on the international stage, dealing with the Euro crisis, with Angela Merkel, dealing with the Libyan crisis, and heading with the Americans and the British, the Libyan intervention to oust Colonel Gaddafi. That was very different from what we expected and what we talked about in 2007. So obviously, presidential leadership is an issue, and it's a major issue. And I think Nicolas Sarkozy has proven his leadership. Now, if you talk about Toulouse, which was a tragic event that happened a couple weeks ago, and I think it's very important not to have any political or partisan debate on this issue. And I think everyone would agree with that. But when you talk about leadership, you see lots of socialist leaders like Jérôme Guedj, or Julien Drey, or Jean-Jacques Urvoas, who, during the intervention, criticized the police, criticized the interior minister, whose action was actually supported by most political leaders abroad the spectrum. I think this is not responsible, and I think this asks many questions about the socialist leadership, the way the Socialist Party works, and how François Hollande is even capable of having the support of his own troops.
But do you think this will play out in the votes? I mean, will there be a Toulouse effect when people go to the voting booth?
I'm not sure we should ask even this question. I
Why
think it was a national tragedy. I think it was extremely well handled by the police, who was able to identify and capture in just a couple of days the terrorist, the murderer, and I think and that's the reason why the campaign was suspended for a few days during this intervention, is that we should not have any thoughts about the political or the polling impact.
I'm not saying we, but voters might think about this when they go, or do you think they will think about their housing, their kids in school, and other issues like that?
I think that we could have asked a question a few days after the tragedy, but now, a couple of weeks after that, I'm not sure that it's possible to see this tragedy as a turning point in the campaign, like the 2002 events with the old man aggressed at home that moved a lot of people in direction of Jean-Marie Le Pen. Now it's not possible. I would not say any judgment on the operation technically, because it's difficult. But I think that in this period, the candidate, not the president, but the candidate, mixed a lot of themes. He spoke about immigration. He spoke about religion, saying that people could look like Muslims, but it doesn't mean anything. Well, a good student in the university or in Sciences Po knows that no one has a Muslim appearance. It doesn't make sense. So it creates a climate that's not very positive. And in the campaign, electors could expect to have answers to those questions, but they don't have with such a mix of themes. Well, it's.
Do you think Nicolas Sarkozy is playing on fear a little bit?
Yes, I think that in 2007 he played the role of the young candidate, very dynamic, capable of changing things. And a lot of people believed that, and the participation was very high. Now, with 5 years at the Élysée and 10 years in the majority, people doesn't believe anymore to that. And he chose, with some councillors at the Élysée responsible for that, he chose the very right
right-wing strategy.
Exactly.
Do you agree with that? That Nicolas Sarkozy has moved towards the right? Even some people say the far right.
I think he's just trying to answer the questions that the population is asking. Obviously, it's impossible to deny that there are immigration issues in the country. It's impossible to deny that there are security issues that are a major issue of concern for the population. And I disagree that we're moving to the far right. On the contrary, Nicolas Sarkozy has always been the first politician to oppose Jean-Marie Le Pen and then Marine Le Pen, has always been opposed to any kind of deal, of discussion, of talks, of electoral talks with the far right. And what are we going to see after the first round, if François Hollande qualifies at the end of the first round? He's going to sit at the same table as Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is the head of a party that unifies the communists, the far left. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who opposed the European Constitutional Treaty. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is a violent critic of capitalism and free markets. And he's going to make a deal. And he's going to give him maybe some government jobs, a promise of government jobs, or maybe go back on some of his program promises to be able to make a deal. So the only one who is actually making deals and talkings and going to the populist of his own side is François Hollande with Jean-Luc Mélenchon.
No, you cannot seriously say that because, well, for years now, Nicolas Sarkozy tried to show the responsible of the situation. That was Roms people, people coming, European people coming from Romania, with a very criticizable decision regarding the campment of the people. Then he spoke about the Assistana. Well, is it a problem? I'm not sure. We all have unemployed people in our family. So every time he tried to show who was responsible for the crisis, but he was not. And regarding the debate on the national identity, well, is that an issue? I'm not sure. Issue is employment, is housing, extra. And he chose this way of campaigning. That's a choice. I'm not sure that is in resonance with the values of Republic.
Before you answer, we mentioned turnout. There is a poll taken that shows that the turnout might be a record one, 32%, which is much more than last time, where actually the turnout was at a record high. 83% of the French went to vote in 2007. The last time it was near the 30s was in 2002. And some people say this might be one of the reasons why Jean-Marie Le Pen made it to the second round instead of the socialist leader, Lionel Jospin. Is this a concern, or is it more a concern for the left?
I think it's a concern for everyone. I think it's a concern for everyone who likes politics, who likes, who is concerned about government and where this country is headed. And it should not be taken lightly, or it should not be used for political controversies. Obviously, I think lots of people are scared right now because of the economic crisis, because of globalization and the world situation, and are a bit worried about their future and what politicians can do for them. So, and maybe some of them are losing faith or not really don't acknowledge or don't recognize themselves in the political debate. So I think it's very important to continue campaigning, to continue going on the issues. That's what Nicolas Sarkozy is going to do in the next few days, announcing measures on education, on economics, on budget, like he's been doing for the last few years with university reform or pension reforms, and continue tackling the major issues for the French. And I think we need to continue this debate till the end.
We're just going to listen to François Hollande, who seems to be clearly worried about the abstention, maybe in the back of his mind, the 2002 precedent.
On va Wait for the second round? Why bother going for the first round of voting? Maybe there'll be better things to do. Well, let me tell you, it's with a big turnout in the first round that you will build the foundation for victory.
Do you think François Hollande is scared that this could be hurting the left more than the other camp?
I agree 100% with what Mr. Haddad said. It would not be a good news for anyone. And the Socialist Party changed its methods for the campaign. It begins only now, and I believe that it will not be so high as shown. The door-to-door strategy adapted from the 50-state strategy of Obama begins for the 2 last weeks of campaign in the Socialist Party, and I think that people will participate. Right. I'm not sure it would be when we address the special issue of the interest of the one of the other. I'm not sure that it would play. People is disappointed by the results of the politics since 5 years, and if abstention is high, it's the result of the credibility, the low credibility of the government now. And I noticed a poll saying that 48% of the population say that François Hollande has a higher credibility regarding Nicolas Sarkozy on average, and on such issue that as economy, employment, etc., people believe more in the proposal of François Hollande, when we believe the polls, of course.
Do you agree?
Well, it seems that when you look at the polls, you also see that abstention is mostly striking the left and is mostly a concern for left voters who seem to be uncomfortable with Hollande and his lack of clear positions on many issues and his avoidance of any real debate with the right. And that's also one of the reasons why Jean-Luc Mélenchon is rising. He's obviously taking votes from François Hollande, and he's probably representing the fact that the left-wing voters are not very comfortable with François Hollande's campaign.
Okay, well, we'll have to leave it at that. We're out of time. I'm afraid we'll have to see how this unfolds in the very last days of the election. We probably know who will be in round 2, but clearly there's still a lot to see before we know who the next French president is. Thank you to both of you, and thank you for watching this edition of Politics here on France 24.